I still remember the morning I found that letter. It was early, and the house was quiet, the kind of silence that feels like it is holding its breath. I was cleaning the top shelf of my mother's old cabinet, a place she always told me to leave alone. There is nothing you need to see up there, she used to say. But she passed away 3 months ago, and I felt it was finally time to sort through her things. I was not searching for anything special. I only wanted to keep my mind busy. When the envelope slipped into my hands, I felt a strange pull in my heart. It was old, slightly yellow around the edges, and my name was written on it in my mother's handwriting. My fingers trembled. Why would she leave something like this hidden? I stood still for a long moment, staring at it, afraid to open it. My breath felt heavy, and my legs felt weak. Finally, I sat down on the floor and opened it. Inside was a letter, simple paper, simple words, but each sentence felt like a crack inside my chest. It said that the man I called father was not my biological father. My real father was someone my mother loved long before her marriage. She wrote that their families refused to accept it. She tried to run away with him, but fear pulled her back. She married the man I grew up calling father, and the truth was buried like a seed never meant to grow. I read that part twice, unable to accept it. The room felt smaller, and my vision blurred with tears. You deserve to know, she wrote, but I was too afraid to tell you while I was alive. I placed the letter against my heart and cried quietly. My whole childhood flashed before me like waves. My father's cold distance, my relatives' quiet whispers, my mother's long, tired stares. Suddenly, everything made a strange kind of sense. A soft rain began to fall outside, tapping against the window. I watched the drops slide down the glass, and it felt like the sky was crying with me. I wondered if anyone else knew. Had my father known all along? Was that why he never smiled at me the way he smiled at my brother? I did not know what to do. I folded the letter and slipped it into my pocket, close to my skin. I stood up slowly, walked to my mother's empty bedroom, and sat on her bed. Her pillows still smelled faintly like her. I held it tightly, whispering, "Why did you hide this from me?" But all I heard was the sound of rain and the soft creak of the house. That morning, I learned something that changed the way I saw my life forever, and I was only at the beginning. For the next few days, I carried the letter everywhere. I kept it folded carefully inside my pocket, as if losing it would erase the truth. I tried to behave normally, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the words my mother wrote. At night, I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet hum of the fan. The house felt different now, heavier, like it was holding secrets in every corner. One evening, I sat at the old wooden dining table with my brother. He was sipping tea, reading the newspaper. I watched him quietly, wondering if he knew something. He looked so calm, so sure of his place in this family. I opened my mouth to speak, then stopped. What could I even say? How would I explain the confusion tangled inside me? He glanced at me. "Why are you staring like that?" he asked with a small smile. I forced a smile back. "Just thinking," I replied softly. But the truth burned inside my chest. I wanted to scream, to ask, to demand answers. Instead, I folded my hands tightly, pressing my fingertips together just to feel something solid. Later that night, I walked down the hallway and stood outside my father's bedroom door. The light under the door glowed faintly. I could hear the rustle of papers, the soft clearing of his throat. Should I knock? Should I tell him? Should I ask if he already knew? My hand lifted halfway before I froze. If he knew, would he admit it? And if he did not know, would I break his heart? He was not perfect, but he raised me. He gave me food, shelter, and a name. Was it right to shake his world now? I lowered my hand slowly and turned away. My footsteps were almost silent on the cool floor. Days passed, and the questions only grew. My mother's birthday approached, and I visited her grave. The cemetery was quiet, with rows of marble stones glistening softly under the sun. I placed a small bouquet of white lilies on her grave and knelt, feeling the rough earth beneath my fingers. "Mother," I whispered, "why did you leave this truth behind without guidance?" A breeze brushed against my cheek, and for a moment, I imagined her soft voice telling me to be brave. On my way home, I stopped at the old park where she used to take me as a child. I sat on the swing, letting it sway gently. Children laughed nearby, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. But inside, I was still a puzzle missing a piece. I knew I could not hide from this forever. The letter was no longer just paper. It was a door I had opened, and now I had to walk through it. And quietly, deep inside, I felt something else beginning to grow. The need to find the man who might be my real father. This was only the beginning of my search. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional stories. The next morning, I stood in front of my mother's cabinet again. I searched through drawers, envelopes, and old notebooks, hoping to find more clues. My hands moved slowly, carefully, afraid of damaging anything precious. At the bottom of the cabinet, under a stack of faded letters, I found a small photograph. It showed a young man standing beside my mother, both smiling gently at the camera. His eyes looked so familiar. It was subtle, but something in his face felt like a mirror. My heart beat faster. Was this him, my real father? I turned the picture around. On the back, in soft pencil, were the initials AM and a date from years before I was born. I sat down on the floor, staring at it. For a moment, I felt like a little girl again, reaching for answers she could not touch. That afternoon, I visited my mother's oldest friend, Aunt Ruth. She lived in a small house with plants hanging from every window. When she saw me, she held my hands warmly. "I have not seen you in weeks," she said. I swallowed hard. "Auntie, I found something." "A letter?" I paused, watching her face carefully. "Do you know anyone with the initials AM?" Her smile faltered. It was small, so small that someone else might have missed it. But I saw it. She turned away, busying her hands with teacups. "Why do you ask?" I held the photo out to her. Her fingers hesitated before she took it. She stared at it for a long moment, then sighed deeply. "Your mother never stopped loving him," she whispered. "But life can be cruel. Families pressured her, and she chose stability instead of pain." My voice was barely a breath. "And him, where is he now?" She looked at me with sad eyes. "He moved to another city. He never married. He tried to contact your mother once, but she closed every door." I felt a heavy ache in my chest. "Did she tell him about me?" She shook her head slowly. "No, she wanted to protect you. Or, perhaps, she wanted to protect herself." Her words were gentle, but they hit like stones. On my way home, the streets blurred past me. My feet moved, but my mind was lost in a storm of thoughts. Should I find him? Should I leave the past where it was buried? When I reached home, I sat alone in my room. The photograph lay in my palm, warm from my touch. I traced the lines of his face again and again. My heart whispered that I needed to know him, even if it hurt. Outside, the evening sky faded into soft shades of orange and gold. Birds flew home, their wings beating against the quiet air. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. Finding him would not be easy, but neither was living with questions. And so, a fragile decision settled quietly inside me. I would search. My search began quietly. I did not tell my brother, and I still could not gather the courage to speak to the man I had called father all my life. Instead, I followed the small trail of clues Aunt Ruxana had offered. She told me the city name, a far place I had only visited once as a child. I spent nights scrolling through old phone directories, community pages, and social groups. His initials, AM, kept echoing in my mind. One night, after hours of searching, I found a name that matched. It belonged to a man working at a small printing shop. Something about the address felt familiar. My heart skipped. I whispered his name to myself, testing the sound of it. It felt heavy, like a truth that had been waiting too long. A few days later, I took a bus to that city. I kept my hands folded on my lap, staring out of the window. Trees passed by, houses blurred, and the world felt strangely quiet inside my chest. I carried the photograph inside my bag, tucked between two books like a secret hidden in plain sight. The bus arrived near noon. Streets were busy. People hurried past, carrying their own stories, unaware of the storm inside me. I asked for directions, and finally, I stood in front of a small printing shop with faded paint. The signboard's letters were chipped, but still readable. I hesitated before pushing the door open. A bell chimed softly. Behind the counter stood an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. When he looked at me, something inside me trembled. His face was older, softer, but the familiarity was undeniable. It felt like looking at a reflection of my own eyes. He smiled politely. "How can I help you?" he asked. My voice caught in my throat. I took a breath. "Are you AM?" I whispered. He paused. "Yes, that's me." My hands shook as I pulled out the old photograph. I placed it gently on the counter. His eyes widened, and the color drained from his face. He held the picture carefully, almost reverently. "Your mother," he breathed, voice trembling. "She passed away," I whispered. His shoulders drooped, as if a weight he had carried for years finally pressed deeper. His eyes glistened. I never stopped thinking about her. There was silence, only the soft hum of machines behind us. I swallowed hard, tears welling. I found a letter. She never told me about you, but I had to know. He nodded slowly, gaze fixed on me. I always wondered if you existed. She never answered my final letter. The world felt still. My heartbeat echoed loudly in my ears. I finally asked the question that had lived inside me for days. Are you my father? He closed his eyes, a single tear slipping down his cheek. I believe I am, he whispered. And in that moment, my whole life shifted. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional stories. We sat across from each other in the small shop office. The door gently closed behind us. The space smelled faintly of ink and paper, and the dust floating in the sunbeams made everything feel slow, suspended. He poured 2 glasses of water, hands trembling slightly. When he slid one toward me, I noticed we had the same shape of fingers. For a moment, neither of us spoke. We simply stared, as if searching for years we never shared. I always wondered, he began softly, if your mother would tell you one day. His voice cracked like an old window in winter. I tried to reach her, but our families, they feared shame more than love. I felt my throat tighten. She never spoke about you, I whispered. Not once. His eyes lowered. Then she must have been protecting you, or trying to. There was no anger in his tone, only tired sadness. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a small box. I kept this all these years, he said gently. Inside were faded letters, old photographs, and a little silver bracelet. Your mother and I were young. We made plans. We were too afraid to keep. He held up the bracelet. She wanted this for you, if you ever came to me. He placed it in my hand, and the metal felt warm, as if holding someone's memory. Tears gathered in my eyes. Why didn't you fight for us? I asked, not accusing, just aching. He took a shaky breath. I tried, but she begged me to let her go. She said her family would destroy her reputation, and yours too. She wanted you to have a peaceful childhood. I imagined my mother, young and scared, choosing silence over war. The thought both broke and healed something inside me. He studied my face quietly. You look like her, he murmured, but your eyes are mine. I laughed softly, a tear escaping. I thought so. Minutes passed in gentle conversation. He told me about his simple life, never marrying, never building another family. My heart stayed with your mother, he admitted, even after she chose another path. That confession settled deep in my chest. Eventually, I checked the time. I should go home, I whispered. There are others who might have questions, and so do I. He nodded, understanding the weight I carried. As we stood, he hesitated. Please, come again, not as a stranger, as my daughter. Those last words made my knees weak. A warmth spread through me, slow and steady. I nodded, unable to speak. We walked outside together. The afternoon light painted everything gold, and for the first time in days, I felt the air fill my lungs fully. I will come back, I promised. He smiled, the kind of smile that had waited years. As I walked away, bracelet in my hand, I realized something quietly. I hadn't just found my real father. I had found a missing part of myself. The bus ride home felt longer than before. My fingers traced the silver bracelet again and again. Each turn of the wheel felt like a new thought, a new fear, a new hope. I had finally met him, but what was I supposed to do now? How do you fit someone into your life when they were never allowed to be there? When I reached home, evening shadows stretched across the living room floor. My brother was not around. Only my father, the man who raised me, sat quietly in his usual chair, reading glasses low on his nose. For a long moment, I just stood in the doorway, watching him. He looked smaller somehow, older. He glanced up and smiled. You are late, he said softly. I swallowed. The words stuck behind my tongue. I went out, I murmured. He nodded slowly, returning to his paper. I sat across from him, hearing my own heartbeat. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was familiar, like a coat I had worn my entire life. But now, something warm and heavy rested beneath it. After a few minutes, he spoke without looking up. You look tired. I almost laughed, but the humor faded quickly. Just thinking, I whispered. He lowered his paper. His eyes, deep, unreadable, rested on my face. Your mother used to say that when something weighed on her heart, my breath caught. He looked down again, voice quiet. Her eyes would get heavy, just like yours. I stared at him, wondering, did he know? Had he always known? Later that night, I found myself standing outside his bedroom door, again. This time, the weight of the truth pressed harder. I knocked gently. Yes, he answered, I opened the door slightly. His lamp glowed soft and warm. He smiled tiredly. Everything all right? I hesitated. My lips trembled. I wanted to confess. I wanted to ask, but the sight of his face lined with years, softened by time, pulled me into silence. Yes, I whispered weakly. Good night. He nodded, unaware, and turned off his lamp. In my room, I sat on my bed, staring at the bracelet. Two fathers, one who loved me from afar, and one who raised me quietly, without praise, without recognition. Could I hold both truths without breaking? Days passed. I returned to the printing shop again, slowly letting him into my world. We shared tea, stories, gentle laughter, but every meeting tugged at my heart. The more I saw him, the heavier my secret grew at home. One evening, after returning from the shop, I found my father waiting in the kitchen. Where have you been? He asked softly. I froze. His eyes searched mine, not angry, not suspicious, just worried. And I realized, sooner or later, I would have to face the truth. Not on paper, not in silence, but in the eyes of the man who raised me. And that day felt closer than ever. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional stories. The next morning carried a strange heaviness. My father's gentle question from the night before echoed in my mind. I wondered how long he had noticed my sudden trips, the change in my eyes, the quietness in my voice. Maybe parents sense the storms inside their children without needing words. I tried to keep myself busy washing dishes, folding laundry, dusting shelves, but nothing quieted my thoughts. My brother walked into the kitchen, yawning. You look troubled, he said, pouring tea. Anything wrong? I forced a smile. Nothing serious. He looked at me longer than usual. You know you can talk to me, right? I nodded, but silence answered for me. I could not share half a story. It would only grow heavier. Later that week, I visited the printing shop again. My real father greeted me with warmth that felt both new and familiar. I thought you might not come, he admitted quietly. I had to, I said, taking a seat. There are things I still do not understand. We talked about my mother, how she loved quietly, how fear wrapped around her choices. He told me stories of her laughter, her dreams, the poetry she used to write. Each detail felt like discovering pieces of her I never knew existed. When he spoke, I saw her differently, not as a mother who hid truth, but as a young woman trapped between duty and dignity. But every moment I spent there added weight to the secret I carried home. As I prepared to leave, he placed a gentle hand on mine. You do not have to rush anything, he whispered. Take your time, build whatever you feel is right between us. His voice trembled slightly. I lost years. I don't want to lose respect to him. Those words stayed with me all the way home. When I reached the house, the lights were dim. My father sat in the living room, waiting. His glasses were off, his hands folded. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. Sit, he said softly. I did. I saw you in the market today, he continued. With that man. My heart stopped. He spoke slowly, choosing each word with care. I know who he is. A tear escaped before I could stop it. You knew. His eyes glistened, old pain rising to the surface. Your mother told me long ago. She wanted to leave the past behind. She begged me to raise you as my own. I agreed because I loved her. And I chose to love you. My breath shook. Why did you never tell me? He looked away, voice trembling. Because love is not always spoken. Sometimes it is carried. Silence filled the room, heavy but honest. I reached across the table and held his hand. It was warm, familiar, steady. In that quiet moment, I realized something gentle and heartbreaking. Truth does not erase love, it simply changes its shape. In the days that followed, something shifted inside our home. The silence that once felt heavy now carried gentle breaths of honesty. My father, the man who raised me, seemed quieter, but not cold. I found him often staring at the window, lost in memories only he could see. One evening, I sat beside him, unsure how to start. He spoke first. I was afraid, he admitted softly. Afraid you would see me differently if you knew. I placed my hand over his. I see you more clearly now, I whispered. You chose me when you did not have to. His eyes filled with tears he didn't bother hiding. It was the first time I truly understood the weight he carried all these years, not of betrayal, but of love without ownership. My brother joined us later, sensing the change. When I finally told him the truth, he listened quietly, rubbing his forehead. That explains a lot, he said. But you are my sister. Nothing changes that. His voice was firm, grounding. I hugged him, feeling years of fear dissolve. In the following week, I visited the printing shop again. My real father welcomed me with a trembling smile. This time, I noticed the way his eyes followed mine, curious, gentle, proud. We talked about small things, his favorite tea, the books he loved, but beneath our words rested a quiet acceptance. We could not rewrite the past, but we could choose what came next. At one point, he asked, "Do they know about me?" I hesitated. "Not fully. They are still adjusting." "So am I," he nodded slowly. "Do not rush. Hearts take time to make room for new truths." That simple wisdom settled deep in me. As days turned into weeks, both men began to shape corners of my life differently. My father at home watched me with softer eyes, as though relieved that the secret no longer lived alone in his chest. My real father listened to stories of my childhood he had never witnessed, smiling quietly, sometimes painfully, but always with love. One afternoon, after sharing tea at the shop, I walked home thinking about family. It is not just blood, it is every hand that lifts us, every voice that speaks gently when we break, every silence that waits for us to breathe again. At home, I sat on my mother's old bed, holding her pillow the way I did the day I found the letter. "I understand," I whispered. "You tried your best." The house felt lighter, as if walls had finally exhaled. In the end, I learned this: secrets may protect us for a moment, but truth heals us for a lifetime. And while I have two fathers, I do not have to choose. One gave me life, and the other raised it with love. Today, I wear the silver bracelet on my wrist. It does not symbolize brokenness. It reminds me of a girl who found herself through letters, tears, and quiet truths. And somewhere, my mother is at peace. Thank you for listening to my story. Like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more emotional journeys.